presentation on the spot because they had all this different dye and acid that they would rub on the line and then rub different pigments to get the line exactly the same color as the water. And in doing that, they used a lot of bigger line. 12-pound test, 15-pound test, 20-pound test, different diameter line. And the one thing that I saw that just totally amazed me, now I'm down under the deck, under the glass deck, and somebody's up on top of the deck, and they're casting. And we're watching all these fish. It's a fish sanctuary. There are just tons of big bass there. But they won't bite. The water's really, really, really clear. They won't just bite everything like you'd think because they don't get any pressure on them. They're pretty leery. And in that clear water. But the one thing that I noticed is before your lure ever got to them, let's just say this is a piece of structure. And the bass is laying by that structure. Maybe it's lily pads. Maybe it's reeds. Maybe it's a piece of wood. Whatever. And it's in 4 or 5 foot of water. And that bass is positioned by that structure, as bass love to do. You cast beyond that structure, you allow that plastic worm to go to the bottom, and you start to pull that worm back to that structure to be able to catch that fish, to get it in the zone where that fish is at. And before your bait ever got there, that fish is backing up. Your line is moving the water. Your line, when you drag that plastic worm, that line's moving that water, and that fish knows it. And he's freaked out. He hasn't seen the bait yet. But because your line's moving that water, he's already alerted there's a lure coming. And this is in an area that don't get a lot of fishing pressure. So it's hard to fool them. But if you drop that bait directly, Uncle Homer Circle, I don't know how many people in here knew Uncle Homer Circle. He was the editing chief for Sports Afield magazine for lots and lots of years. Passed away about 5 months ago. Awesome, awesome, awesome bass fisherman, awesome outdoor rider, and a great ambassador for the sport of bass fishing. Uncle Homer was up on that deck, and he started taking a spinning reel and doing what today we call pitching. And then instead of throwing past that brush or past those reeds or lily pads or that structure, he'd just take the bill of that spinnerbait and he'd pitch that worm and let it land right on top of the fish's head, and the fish would have it before it ever hit the bottom. He was the only one catching fish. And he got those fish to react to that bait out of impulse. Everybody else that was fishing and dragging that bait, the traditional method of presentation to a fish, everybody that was doing that was not catching fish. Fish knew it was a trick. You were displacing that water before you ever got to the fish. So the key to catching fish is to be able to react to what they need when they're finicky. Get them to react to a bait out of impulse instead of trying to entice them into hitting the bait. That is the key. That is exactly what is going on in this tournament. Everybody that's in this top 10 is catching fish through reactionary strikes. If they're fishing drop shots in the brush, when they hit that brush and hang up and sit there and jerk it, that's when they're getting a bite. If they're fishing up against shallow stuff, they're seeing the fish and throwing that top water right there on top of his head. I'm trying to think. Brian Thrift told me yesterday. Brian Thrift said, I got so frustrated looking at these wolf packs of fish, and I can tell this today because the tournament's over and nobody's going to be able to tell other competitors that would give away a little edge that he may have. But he said, I get so frustrated. If you miss by 2 feet, he'll just run up there with his mouth closed and give you a courtesy strike. They don't want it. You got to make a perfect cast. And he said, yesterday I had lost 3 fish in a row, and then I had these 2 or 3 big wolf packs of fish that just would not hit my bait. I'd see them and I'd throw it and they'd just come up at it and look at it and wouldn't bite it. He said, so the next school I came to, I just picked up a shaky head worm and I threw it, and he said, I literally landed on the fish's head. I hit him. He said, I knew it was going to spook him. And it was about a 3.5 pound bass. And he said, before I ever clicked my reeling gear, he had it. I mean, that fish reacted that fast. So that's what it takes to catch fish that get a lot of fishing pressure in clear water, hot water. They're very lethargic, and they need to have a presentation that gets them to react to the bait out of impulse. You cannot entice these fish into biting on a regular basis. So again, everybody that's in this top 10, they've all caught these fish because they got them to react out of impulse. We got about 5 minutes, and I'll answer any question. But I do want you to remember there are a lot of ways to catch fish, and there are a lot of techniques. Finesse fishing is an incredible way of catching leery fish, but sometimes that isn't even enough. Sometimes, if it were all about finesse fishing, you can bet your bottom dollar Brent Ayler would be in the top 10. He's the best. Cody Myers. Those are the two best finesse fishermen in the world. And they both fell just a little bit short. It's all about getting those fish to react out of impulse. Anybody got a question? I'll recognize your question.